It's now my pleasure to introduce Michael Torrey as our commencement speaker. Mr. Torrey is founder and principal of Michael Torrey Associates, a bipartisan consulting firm that specializes in advocacy, association management, coalition building, governmental relations, and thought leadership around food and agriculture issues. A Kansas native who was raised on a diversified farming operation, Torrey has more than 30 years of experience in legislative and regulatory policy development. He has served as a top advisor to Senate Majority Leader Bob Dole and Senators Nancy Landon Kassebaum and Sheila Fromm. He has also held numerous roles in the executive branch, including Deputy Assistant Secretary for Congressional Relations and Deputy Chief of Staff at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and Special Assistant at the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. He has been an advisor to numerous presidential campaigns and presidential transition teams. Torrey is a proud alumnus of Kansas State University. In 2009, he was named Outstanding Young Alumnus by the College of Ag Alumni Association. He was instrumental in creating the Kansas Food and Agricultural Policy Fellowship Program to connect K-State students with internships in food and agricultural policy, with the goal of bringing promising young people into careers in government and policy. Torrey is a champion for numerous civil rights organizations. He serves on the board of directors of the Farm Foundation and has mentored youth through the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. He is an active parishioner at Holy Trinity Catholic Church in Washington, D.C. He lives in Arlington, Virginia with his wife and daughter. It's my pleasure to welcome Michael Torrey to the podium.
President Linton, Provost Tabor, Dean Minton, esteemed faculty, honored guests, thank you for inviting me here today. I'd also like to acknowledge my wife, Julia, and our daughter, Margaret, somewhere here in the audience. I might add a prospective member of the class of 2032. Margaret's K-State pride is undeniable, judging from the KSU clothes that she wears to her school in Washington, D.C. Members of the class of 2022, my fellow Wildcats, congratulations. It is an honor to be standing before you. I'm gonna start off with a bit of a confession. This is a speech that I never thought I'd be asked to give. My 4+ years at K-State were glorious, but I might also say I wasn't the best student. 37 years ago, I clocked a GPA of 1.47 in the spring semester. Yeah. Not an applause line I thought I'd get. The D that I earned in Professor Barry Flinchball's agricultural policy class is still a thorn in my side. This is actually the first K-State commencement that I've ever attended. I did not attend my own commencement. So it's a bit strange to witness this ceremony from the stage as a 58-year-old alumnus. As I prepared my remarks today, I thought about what I would have wanted to hear when I was in your shoes. So I'd like to share a few words of advice, particularly for those of you whose GPAs might bear an uncomfortable resemblance to mine. Now, I know it's a cliche for a commencement speaker to boil his or her advice down to one snappy catchphrase. But as Professor Flinchball once said, we need less rhetoric and more facts. So here's one I want to leave with you today. You need to have a plan. Now, that may not sound like earth-shattering advice. You're graduating today, and you would not be here if you didn't know something about making plans. But what is your plan for tomorrow? What is your plan for next month? What is your plan for next year? What's your plan for the next 2 or 3 or 4 years? Some of you or many of you have already lined up your first job post-college. Some of you may have travel plans for the summer, and some of you may not yet know what's next. I'm a planner, but my plans have not always worked out. I first remember adopting a plan for my life back in the 5th grade. I heard one of the older kids from my hometown speak in a one-room schoolhouse at my first ever 4-H meeting. Todd was 3 years ahead of me in school, and his speech changed my life. Listening to him that night, I realized that what I wanted to do. I wanted to be like Todd. I wanted to be able to give a speech and to be a leader. I wanted to rise through the ranks of 4-H as Todd had, and I wanted to command the respect and the attention of my community as Todd did. In the fall of my sophomore year, Todd died in a car crash. His death was hard. It was the first time I'd lost someone that close to me. I responded by recommitting to my plan, the plan that Todd had inspired, and I set my eye on becoming a national FFA officer. It was that plan that brought me to K-State and eventually Professor Flinchball's class on agriculture policy. I thought that it would help me win one of the top spots in FFA. I ran for office in 1984. I lost, and at that time, my plan started to unravel. I had been striving for national FFA office for 6 years. All that time and effort, I thought, for naught. The first person I saw that after I'd learned of my loss was my grandfather. And unbeknownst to me, he had driven across the state of Kansas to attend the convention to support me, to hopefully see me fulfill my dream. He told me he was sorry that I didn't win. I was emotional. I didn't know what to say. I was kind of embarrassed that he'd made the drive just to see me lose, and I didn't want to talk to anyone, so I just walked away. That was the last time I spoke to him. He died unexpectedly 2 days later. The 1-2 punch of losing that election and then my grandfather walloped me. I adapted a new, somewhat self-destructive mantra. And instead of every man a wildcat, I live by the credo, every wildcat a wild man. And that's how I ended up with a 1.47 GPA. And so a second, perhaps even more important a piece of advice is plan for your plan not to go according to plan. It took me a little while to learn that lesson. My plan of riding leadership into the FFA of fame and fortune didn't pan out, and several months of wild living and poor grades led to academic probation, and I had to relinquish an officer position in my fraternity, Alpha Gamma Rho. All of that was embarrassing, but the light bulb eventually went off, and I realized I had to come up with a new plan. My first one didn't work out, but that wasn't the end of my story. I had to find another way forward. I managed to nudge my GPA closer to 3.0 by the time I completed the requirements of my diploma. My desire to overcome my embarrassment about the way my time in Manhattan ended eventually sent me to Washington, D.C., where I was able to manage and build a fulfilling career for myself in food and agriculture policy. When we're young, we tend to be impatient. We may set a goal and create a plan to achieve that goal. And we may look out in front of us and see a sizable gap between where we are and where we'd like to be. We get frustrated that we're not making our way toward that goal fast enough. And maybe we don't get there at all. That gap before us on where you are today and where you want to be, it's anxiety-inducing. Bad things can happen in that gap. And instead, I encourage you, as you move forward with your plans, to look at the gap behind you. The gap between where you are today and where you were when you embarked on this plan. And look how far you've come. That gap is healthy. That gap is perspective. That gap instills confidence. The confidence that you might need to achieve whatever goal is before you. You graduates are about to embark on a very exciting chapter of your lives. Excitement and possibility are just over the horizon. It's exhilarating, and it's also daunting. Until now, you've had guardrails on your lives. You've been surrounded by family and friends and teachers and peers and mentors, and they've helped you keep on track. They've been there to cheer your success and pick you up and dust you off when you've had a setback. And of course, this network's not going to disappear after graduation, but when you cross this stage today, you're going to be in the driver's seat. You're going to have the opportunity to put into practice the lessons that you've learned both in and out of the classroom for the past 16 years. And rather than sitting down and listening, soon you're going to be standing up and doing. Experts predict that here in the United States, there's 25 million people that are going to live past 100 by the year 2100. Chances are pretty good some of you in here are going to be part of that group. Now think about that for a second. 8 more decades to live and think and to work, to take a chance and to make a difference. Now, if I had that kind of time, I'd like to think that I have a plan. And if my 58 years on this earth have taught me anything, it's that my plan better be ready for some unexpected turns at least once every decade. I don't know what the changes are going to happen in the next 20, 50, 100 years. You'll be able to plan for some of them. And others, they're going to hit you with no warning. Knowing that will make whatever plan you come up with be a lot more robust. I'm going to wrap up with one final note about plans. I can't tell you what you should be in them, though in the short term, and we're going to do this hopefully today, is I'd go by Call Hall and get one last scoop of Purple Pride ice cream before you get rid of the cap and gown. But where you should live, what type of career you should pursue, those plans can only you can make. But I can tell you this, there's times in your life when you're going to be a student, and there are times in your life when you're going to be the teacher. For the past 4 years, you've been lucky enough to be students at the greatest university in the world. You have been given a gift of a K-State education. So, share what you've learned. Share what you learned with those who might benefit from that knowledge, and make that, sharing what you've learned a part of your plan. Give back, live your lives for and with others, be grateful for the gifts that you've received and the opportunities that you've had to take the time to help others the way you've been helped. 40 years from now, one of you may very well be up here giving a speech to a crop of wildcats that haven't even been born yet. But no matter where you go, you're going to remain a part of this place. And this place will remain a part of you. Because really, and I think we know this, K-State is not just a place. It's a community. It's a bond. It's the swell of pride that you get when you hear the fight song, and the excitement that you feel when you spot someone walking down the street in a faraway city wearing a Kansas State shirt. And that excitement and that pride and that bond, none of that ends the day with graduation. You've only been a student here for 4 years, but you're going to be an alum for the rest of your life. And I can assure you, it doesn't get old. So congratulations, class of 2022. May God bless you and all of your future endeavors. And may you have happiness and success even when your plans don't pan out. Thank you.